What if I told you that Zeta Halo, until now, was the most mysterious Halo ring of them all? Seeped in rich, disturbing lore that would make you think, damn, that's pretty messed up. What if I told you that it had everything to do with the Flood, ancient human experimentation, and it has been fired more times than any other ring? All of that will be explained and more in today's video, so get ready for the entire history of Zeta Halo, from its construction all the way up until Halo Infinite. Unlike the other current 6 Halo rings in the galaxy, Zeta Halo, or Installation 07, was manufactured at a place called the Greater Arc, which was a much bigger version of the arc that we went to in Halo 3, at around 97,745 BCE. As a result of this, Zeta Halo was much bigger than your average Halo ring, at around 30,000 kilometers in diameter to be exact. Like the other Halos, Zeta Halo served as a secondary purpose as a life worker reserve for biological specimens from across the galaxy as part of the conservation measure. For those of you who don't know, the conservation measure, also known as the Library Project, was a massive project by the Forerunners to index and preserve biological diversity in the Milky Way galaxy before and during the Forerunner Flood War. Also, life workers are Forerunners who specialise in all living things and medicine, including experimenting with new forms of life. And what if I told you that we had actually met one before in a Halo game? Well, actually, during Halo 4 we met the Librarian, one of the most powerful life workers to have ever lived. Installation 07, or Zeta Halo, was primarily dedicated to humans, being home to various species and subspecies of the human genus. In the beginning, these humans were allowed to build their own societies and were mostly left alone by the Forerunners. In the beginning. During the Forerunner Flood War, a Forerunner known as Master Builder Faber placed Zeta Halo along with the 11 other rings in the original Halo array under the control of the Contender class AI Mendicant Bias, the most advanced artificial intelligence to ever be made. In doing this, a physical extension of Mendicant was placed on the rings. Now, in my opinion, Faber was slightly messed up in a lot of ways. The reason I say this about him is because at one point he broke the deal with the Librarian to preserve life on the ring and started to use the humans living on it in sick, twisted, brutal experiments involving the Flood. He also forcibly drafted some warrior servants, a rank in the Forerunner military, as an additional security force for the installation. In their exhaustive experiments, Faber's researchers found that the majority of humans were apparently immune to the Flood, which they believed to be a result of a cure. The researchers believed that a cure to the Flood might be found by extracting ancestral memory imprints from the humans that carried the special gene song left by the Librarian. When they told Faber this, he needed to know for sure. So, as you do, he started ordering his forces to gather humans from the Librarian's special population on Earth and bring them back to Zeta Halo. This was against the instructions of the Librarian and the Forerunner High Council, who had deemed that ancient humans on a Halo ring was way too great of a security risk. Consequently, both the installation's own human specimens and ancient humans from Earth would be used in Faber's experiments in a place the humans called the Palace of Pain. Also, I should mention that there was and is no cure to the Flood. This was simply a tactic the Flood used against the Forerunners during the war, to make them think they had found a cure when in fact it was just them choosing not to infect the humans to throw them off. At around 97,495 BCE, 60 years after Faber had begun his unsanctioned and cruel experiments, he charged Mendicant Bias with test firing Zeta Halo in Sharam Hakor's system. However, this was a grave mistake. As an unprecedented side effect of this ring's firing, an entity that had been imprisoned on the planet for millennia had been released. That entity is not just any old prisoner, it was in fact the last known remaining precursor and also the first ever gravemind to have ever existed, known as the Primordial. The Primordial, or the Captive as it was known to the Forerunners, was then taken on the ring by order of Faber. Life workers on the ring started to study the creature, but it remained unsure as to its true nature. While some believed it to be related to the Flood, some did not. Here's a little secret just between you and me. it was related to the flood. Not trusting the life workers, for whatever reason, Faber assigned Mendicant Bias to interrogate the Primordial. However, the Primordial, being a grave mind, infected Mendicant Bias with the AI equivalent of an infection form known as the Logic Plague. Picture it, the most advanced and intelligent AI in all of history, capable of controlling Forerunner systems that includes the Halo Array, now turned on its creators and under the influence of the Flood. Definitely an oh shit moment. Not only did the Primordial turn Mendicant over to the Flood, they also managed to manipulate Faber into complying with its schemes. Whether Faber was fully aware of the Primordial's goals or simply an uninformed pawn is unclear. The Primordial later then took charge of all operations on Zeta Halo, encouraging Faber to continue his experiments on humans, apparently for no other reason other than its own amusement. Faber departed the installation shortly after the Primordial had been brought in, leaving his researchers in charge. As Faber's researchers took more and more humans from across the ring for their experiments, many human societies effectively collapsed. The people had abandoned the cities they constructed out of fear that the Forerunners would come and take them away. After Mendicant Bias had been infected by the Primordial, the AI started to break the safeguards in the ring's various flood containment facilities, allowing the parasite to spread to various sections of the installation. The flood devoured large areas of the Halo's landscape, covering it with flood biomass. As more and more Forerunners succumbed to the flood's infection across the installation, Faber used a machine known as the Composer to stave off the effects of the flood infection in a number of infected Forerunners. After Zeta Halo had officially been considered missing for 43 years, Faber had a second Halo ring transported to the San Shayum homeworld, Janja Quam, and activated it to suppress a rebellion on the planet, wiping out all but a few San Shayum. However, he failed to foresee the consequences of this decision. Immediately after the ring's firing, many of the warrior servants and life workers assigned to serve under Faber's forces openly rebelled against him, viewing his actions as a grave offense against the mantle of responsibility. This rebellion for the most part was violently suppressed by Faber's Builder's security forces, and the remaining life workers and warrior servants were given a choice: serve Faber or be killed. Some chose to ally with Faber, while those loyal to the High Council continued to resist, sabotaging power stations and other facilities on the ring in an attempt to cripple the installation from within. Once the news that Faber had used a Halo installation against the San Shayum homeworld reached the Forerunner High Council, Faber was arrested and put onto trial on Maithrillion, the Forerunner capital world. The other 11 Halo rings were gathered in orbit over the capital, while Zeta Halo remained missing after the incident at Janja Quam. During Faber's trial, something completely unexpected happens. Suddenly, Zeta Halo appeared over Maithrillion. The now rampant Mendicant Bias managed to subvert its other extensions of itself on 5 of the remaining Halo rings and cripple the capital's forces, all while releasing Faber from captivity. Picture it, now Mendicant Bias, infected by the Flood, not only has 1 Halo ring under control, he now has 6. However, the emergent Isodiadact, an alternate incarnation of the Promethean Supreme Commander known as the Diadact, used a control code against Mendicant to temporarily stun him, which allowed the capital's defences to respond to the attack and assault the now 6 Halo rings under Mendicant's control. The capital's fleet opened fire on Zeta Halo, while the Halo ring sentinels and Faber's ship attempted to defend it. Many of the ships involved in the battle were destroyed and crashed across the ring. Despite Zeta Halo taking heavy damage, Mendicant Bias used the final option and successfully activated Zeta Halo's main weapon at the conclusion of the battle, wiping out all life in the capital system and thus finishing the fight. After the battle at the capital, Zeta Halo retreated into a slipspace portal, reappearing in a distant star system near the galaxy's edges. This was part of a security measure beyond Mendicant Bias's control. In order to prevent the ring from falling into the wrong hands, it had been programmed to enter a course which would result in a collision with a planet in several days. As the primary automated control systems had been sabotaged, the Primordial and Mendicant Bias were unable to direct the Halo's movements. So instead, they began to gather humans in a last-ditch effort to use them to manually steer the ring away from the destructive course. Following its successful retreat from the battle at Maethrillion, Zeta Halo began automated measures to repair the damage it had taken. Mendicant Bias used its all-encompassing control to corrupt most Forerunner armors on the ring, turning the armors into death traps for their wearers. This forced the Forerunners to remove their armor protecting them in order to survive. The humans were then taken to the facility where Mendicant Bias's core was housed. There, humans from Earth were separated and their ancestral personality imprints were removed by Mendicant and the Primordial. They were given a choice: cooperate with Mendicant and have their revenge against the Forerunners for destroying their civilizations. However, they would first have to help save Zeta Halo from colliding with the approaching planet. Those who accepted Mendicant's offer were then sent to various control stations spread out across the Halo, including the Cartographer. However, humans alone did not possess the knowledge yet necessary to properly interface with the ring. Instead, Flood-infected Forerunners that had been processed by the Composer were brought in and connected with each human to the Halo's control systems. As Zeta Halo approached the planet, the controllers successfully managed to reorient the ring in a way that the planet would pass through the center. This way, the ring would take heavy damage but still had a chance of survival. Despite this, there was still a grave risk that the gravitational pull of the planet would tear the Halo into pieces. Plates of foundation material were removed over the exterior walls in preparation for repairs during the passage. Sentinels and other craft were positioned across the Halo, firing their engines in an attempt to alter the ring's course, with little success. The ring's central hard light bulb and spokes, typically used in the activation process of the main weapon, were activated to slow down the ring's passage over the planet, and to borrow some of the planet's velocity in order to alter the ring's orbit in an effort to prevent collisions. However, the hard light structures, such as the light bridges that we see, did not last long against the planet's surface, disintegrating shortly after impact. The ring's outer walls quickly exceeded their capacity to manage the strain of the planet's tidal stresses, even coming apart at several points. As the walls gave way, the foundational plates began to bend and distort, with massive gaps, some of them hundreds of kilometers in diameter, opening between them. While Zeta Halo had already begun its passage over the planet, suddenly, a fleet led by the Isodiadact appeared, and the Diadact used his control codes to finally shut Mendicant Bias down. He immediately entered the Cartographer and connected to the installation's controls, while dreadnoughts from the fleet moved to provide power to the ring in order to save it. Despite the additional power supply, the Halo could not be saved in its entirety, as the damage was too great. In order to relieve the massive stresses on the Halo ring, the Diadact ordered that Zeta Halo be reduced by getting rid of all the damaged plates. This would allow Zeta Halo to also be repaired at the lesser arc. As a result of this, the Halo ring was brought down from its diameter of 30,000 kilometers to a mere 10,000, a third of its original size. On its remaining power, but still with the help of the external ships providing some, Zeta Halo generated a slipspace portal and transitioned to the greater arc. Most of Zeta Halo's survival biological specimens, including humans, were saved by the life workers and relocated to the arc. Mendicant Bias's core on the installation was deactivated, while the AI itself was forced to undergo a process to correct its rampancy. The Primordial was captured and placed in a cage within a chamber deep underneath the installation's surface. There, the Diadact interrogated the being before eventually killing it. The majority of the Flood, including 10 inactive proto-grave mines and the infected Forerunners processed by the Composer, remained on the ring, watched over by a number of remaining monitors. By order of the Diadact, Zeta Halo was eventually sent through a slipspace portal to remain as a memorial, a sacred tomb for the millions of beings that had died there. At the same time, it was intended to be used with the final, newer Halo array if a mass galactic sterilization was deemed necessary. At the conclusion of the Forerunner Flood War, Zeta Halo, along with 6 other Halo rings in the newly constructed Halo array, were activated, wiping out all life within its effective radius of 25,000 light years and the entire Milky Way galaxy. Everyone was dead. However, that was not the end of the story from that point, as you would think, since all life had been wiped out. But what if I told you that wasn't true? Shortly after the activation of the Halo array in 97,445 BCE, 117649 Despondent Pyre noted that the flood was successfully eradicated and the conservation measure had allowed countless index species to return to their worlds anew. However, a previously uncatalogued species known as the Zalanin were discovered to have survived the Halo effect, and the matter was brought before the Forerunner High Council, or what was left of them. The council decided to engage in a parley with the Zalanin, and Zeta Halo was moved to be within range of their homeworld. Delegates from both sides met at the Silent Auditorium, and it was there that the Forerunners had betrayed the Zalanin and imprisoned them all within Zeta Halo. And that's basically all we see of Zeta Halo up until Halo 2. On November 3rd, 2552, during the Battle of Installation 05, or its more well-known name, Delta Halo, the ring failed to fire due to Miranda Keyes taking the index out midway through the process. As a result of this, the entire Halo array, including Zeta Halo, was then put on standby status, meaning that the whole array could then be remote activated from Installation 00, or its more common name, the Ark, or if you want to get all technical, the Lesser Ark. Later, in 2552, during the Battle of Installation 00, Zeta Halo was still on standby. However, Spartan John 117 deactivated the Halo array before it could be fired, rendering Zeta Halo harmless for the time being. On November 28, 2553, a scientist and historian by the name of Luther Mann discovered the location of Zeta Halo through cross-referencing Forerunner architecture on the Forerunner shield world sarcophagus. As a result of this, Oni initiated the Zeta Halo project in 2555, sending a research group of approximately 300 scientists of multiple fields to study the mysterious Halo ring. And there it is, that is the full history of Zeta Halo, from its construction all the way up until Halo Infinite. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.